did that. Okay, we're back. Cool. Okay. So Birmingham traffic, not fun. Got stuck in it. So one of the other ambassadors that who actually lives in the area, my mom calls his mom. See, it's like, hey, can he come pick up Cooper? Just not, getting stuck in traffic. Got somewhere to be. So ends up, I go with a friend, like one of the ambassadors, which his name's Wit, and we end up going to his house. We sit there for about an hour, and he's got some stuff going on. He's got some math he was finishing up on, and sitting there drinking Coca-Cola, just chatting while in between his time of working with the schoolwork. And then we ended up, then we were on our way to the 4-H center, and I will say this: the area he lives in, very beautiful. House, very beautiful. So if you're watching this, then got to tell you, thank you for picking me up that on Thursday night. That was awesome. So thank you very much. So I will say this: we got going to the 4-H center. The roads down there also very beautiful area there in Columbiana. And so we get to the 4-H center, take our stuff, get in our room and all. And then we sit in the theater and we got our supper, which we got Chick-fil-A catered. I mean, very good sandwich. And if you've had the catered Chick-fil-A, you know that there's the little waffle chips, like they're chips in the shape of a waffle fry. So those are I'll say this: the ones I had in the past didn't have as much salt, I think, than the ones I had Thursday night, because they were very salty, to be honest with you. And so then it came with a cookie as well, and such a great meal. Chick-fil-A never misses, always such a great meal. So we had Chick-fil-A, and then it was time to get to work. And so decorations committee is putting up decorations. Workshop committee is going to help wherever they can. Icebreakers is going wherever they can to help. And Dr. Joyce Scott, who is the lead advisor, she had brought her son, who was 4 years old. And so I and my good friend Clay Harris, we ends up you get a little bit later in the night, about 8:00, and we're playing with them. So much fun. Such a great kid. And it was such a fun first night preparing stuff. And it was honestly, because the previous year we came on that Friday, which was supposed to be the first day of Midwinter, at 12:00, and it just seemed very chaotic. Whereas this year, getting there on Thursday night and getting things prepared, it just felt more calming, and it felt like we had a better ability to get things prepared prior, rather than last year. Whereas last year we had pretty much everything prepared, but this year I just preferred the Thursday night meeting. Even though it would have been, even though we were there an extra night, I still think it was, it was worth having. So you get to Friday. We have more preparing to do. And one of the things that really stands out is we worked on skits. And when I tell you that those skits take up a lot of time, I'm not joking with you. The opening skit took us, it was probably close to an hour just to figure out the opening skit, folks. And I mean, it honestly went really good, but it was just crazy. It was just a very crazy moment trying to figure out how do we do this? What are we gonna do for this? That kind of thing. And so it was interesting working on skits. And then at one point, they wanted everyone to run through each and every skit. And so I was in 2 different skits. So one was for the workshop me and Asa Robinson was doing. And the other was a cooking workshop that I was just doing a skit, and I would sit there with the teenagers and just kind of watch and see what they did. So, what ended up happening with that is I got very creative. And if you went to Midwinter, and if you're watching this, of course, comment below what your thoughts was on my acting skills, because let me tell you, I think I did pretty good. Very good, I think. And so, one of my characters was a jester, which you may be thinking, okay, that sounds kind of corny. But yes, I was a jester, and then I was also the big bad wolf. I would say the one that was probably more fun was probably the big bad wolf, because the only thing I did with that is so we're in this cafeteria area and I'm waiting at one of the doors. Nobody can see me. And all my job was to run in and scare the characters off the stage, except the main character, having been Jalen. And so what ended up happening is I scared them off, and then Jalen had lines such as, like, I don't understand why they're all so scared. And then so what I did next is I shrugged my shoulders, and I thought it was hilarious. And then if you go to the jester skit, so what's happening with the jester skit is that I'm supposed to be juggling, and what ended up happening is the Queen of Hearts, which was Cammy, she ended up throwing me in the dungeon. So, folks, when I say I was thrown in the dungeon, what I did, because there's not an actual dungeon, of course, but I went and I was in a corner, and I had my face up against the wall, and I will not forget this, because, okay, first of all, let me finish up with the story, and then I'll tell about what, some comments that were said, but, after the fact. So, of course, I can't remember what Ella's character was, but either way, she comes in and basically makes Cammy get me out of the dungeon. And so I get up, I'm all excited because now I've been freed. And then me and Asa had another little bit that we had planned. So if you're coming to the workshop, Leadership Public Speaking, which I was a jester for, it was we made sure to make people laugh, and it was very informative, I think. So, our little bit, because Asa was a king, and so he's like, Jester, what are all these people doing here? And so I was like, they're here to learn. And then he's asking me what learn. Like, he's like, learn. And I was like, they're here to learn about leadership. And he's like, leadership? And I was like, yes, leadership. And then he would ask me, what do we have planned? And I was like, and so that then began the workshop. So that was a little bit, and I'll get here in a minute. I'll get into the workshop. But first, the comments after the workshop was over on the skit. The first one. So Ace is standing there as we're finishing, kind of getting prepared for the next one. And these girls come up to Asa, and they all are like, they're like, Asa, the jester, we just saw the pain in his eyes, and it made us sad. And then once we had that little gap between groups coming in, Cammy looks at me and she's like, Cooper, don't look that sad. You're making me look bad. And I'm like, and I am standing there. I'm just doing my job. I mean, and so it was just so funny to do that little skit, and the reception of it, I think, was amazing. And so now we get into the workshop. So first I talked about leadership, which mine is more just cut and dry. I mean, I'm going to tell you what, just basically tell you. And, I thought it went really well. I explained all the characters. So what we did is we took characters within a kingdom and described their qualities of their leader. So like the jester is a very charismatic leader. We had the knight, more of a servant. We had the dragon, who is more of a forceful type leader, and then we had the monarch, which was just everything blended together, the ultimate leader. And then at one point, I did qualities of a leader, which basically I was asking what do you think about a leader? So you want integrity, compassion, loyalty. I mean, that kind of thing. So, I got our audience to engage a little bit, which I think honestly, the way me and Asa put it together, it went so wonderfully. Because then we got to Asa's part. And Asa, I'll say this. What makes him such an incredible speaker, and the way you can feel his presence while he's doing his workshop, and he's able to blend in substance, which I would say substance is giving you good information while also engaging with you and getting you to laugh a little, because there was just so many little things he did that just everybody would look at each other and just start laughing because of the fact of he is a genuinely great public speaker. And I'll say this, it all worked together beautifully. It just meshed, and to be honest with you, it was such a great time doing the workshop. So we had two rotations came through. It was amazing. And what was probably the most fun part was when the kids came up and they presented when they were able to come up and present for themselves. And so what we did is we told them you have 1 minute to give us a speech, and if you don't know what to talk about, we got little prompts that we can give you, and you can go with that and try to figure out what you're going to say. So we had so many do it, so many good ones. There were two that really stood out to me. First one, there was this girl who came up, and the way she did it, I was like, it blew me away because it was like, I think she could be ambassador one day. And the reason why I say that is she comes up and she begins by engaging with the audience by saying something like, how many of you is it your first Midwinter? And so at that point I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And so people rose their hands if it's their first Midwinter, which quite honestly, there are quite a few first timers to Midwinter, which was incredible. Very incredible. And so then she gave out this speech about believing in yourself, and it was just so good. And I will say this because I think most ambassadors, most ambassadors and most of the kids who had been to Midwinter before, could relate to what the first timers felt, which is there's a sense of if you don't already know friends, and if you don't see your friends there, then it is kind of lonely at the beginning because you don't know you don't know what you're getting yourself into when you first get there. And I mean, personally speaking, I've seen, like, I feel like I've grown through Midwinter, because I remember at my first Midwinter in person, I mean, I went and sat on my own, and I didn't really talk to many people, and it was it. I mean, honestly, to get to that point to now today, where I'm an ambassador and I'm going up to so many people and talking, and just it's incredible to see what is done. And so that was just a great speech about believing in yourself, I thought. And then the other one, which, Colton, if you're watching this, trust me, you know that what I'm fixing to bring up, and that is Aiden, one of the boys that I gotta tell you, that kid, such a joy to be around, because he comes up and he starts to speak. He decides to do a debate style for his. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. And one of the kids that's from his county was sitting up at the front. He is just like this. He's got his hands over his face because he knows something goofy is about to go down. And well, folks, here's what he posed to the group. Goats are the best animal. Tell me if you'll give me an example of who you think, like what animal's better you think, and I can tell you why they're not. So we had a bunch of examples. I mean, there was a horse. I think maybe there was a dog mentioned. Maybe there's a cat. But the one that was the most hilarious was someone said coyote. So Aiden's like, why coyote? And this girl who was in the back who said coyote, she's like, because coyotes can kill goats. Everyone busted out laughing. It was the most hilarious thing. And Aiden, to add it in, he starts saying that coyotes are worse because they're a bunch of bullies. I got to tell you, it was so funny. And if you're watching this and you were actually in that workshop, you know it was hilarious. And man, it was so much fun. And I got to say this because this is something I've left out. Because the workshop, and I mean, going back the way, like preparing for it all, since June and getting to today where we had it, we did it Friday night. It was a very rewarding feeling once we got done, knowing that we did a good job, and this is something I hadn't seen at Midwinter, but because maybe you would have one group that would probably be very engaging, but you never really had both, in my opinion. Both groups had multiple people come and speak. And I think what it boils down to is that we made it feel so comfortable with the skit, with the way we presented it, and with, I would say this, the way Asa cracked jokes while giving a lot of information. I think it gave the kids enough confidence. They're like, okay, these guys, all they're doing is just talking to us. They're just wanting to be our friends. And so I think it gave a sense of calmness, and it's just like, yeah, let's just go do this. And so it was a very rewarding experience. And I'll say this. In my 2 years as ambassador, and in the 2 years prior to that, being just an attendee of Midwinter, that was probably one of the best workshops that had been conducted that I'd ever seen. And I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to brag on myself, because I'll say this. I just had a tiny little role in the workshop. Asa, his portion was so good. But I think the part that was the main part of it, like I said, is the audience engaging with us. It was so, so good. And quite frankly, it was, in my opinion, probably the best workshop. And I'll tell you this, and then I'll move on. But what really inspired, because I was the one who did the leadership portion. What inspired me to want to talk about leadership was a workshop I went to in my first Midwinter in person. And it was the president, Colton Cook, at the time. And he talked about leadership. And I'll be honest, between his leadership workshop, which was actually pretty cool to think about this, his workshop and the one I did, same room. That was amazing to think about. But between that workshop and then being awarded that year a certificate, because I went from being shy, which I'm not a shy person in some regards, but like at Midwinter that year, I just kind of went and sat on my own. But then the more I got, I went and I was talking with friends, having a good time, and I was given an award because of the growth I had in just a weekend. Those two things, plus my older brother Corey, who was, who wanted to be ambassador. Those three things combined made me want to go and be ambassador. And so, to be able to talk about leadership and do in the same room where maybe one of my most memorable workshops outside of being ambassador, I got to tell you, it's incredible to think about. That in the workshop, wouldn't have traded anything we said, anything we did for anything, because it was just so nicely done. And what's even more rewarding is when you're about to walk out and you have an adult who was just watching it. She comes up to you and she says, "Y'all did such a great job because y'all just seemed like natural public speakers. Y'all are so good at it. And I think the kids really enjoyed what y'all did." That right there, compliments like that can go a long way. So it was a great workshop that we did, and I wouldn't have traded it for anything. So that was pretty much night one, because then after that, we went back up to the upper rec and just kind of, chatted with people, had a good time. Then next day comes, and I was in the cooking workshop, and it was a really good one. So they began by, it was this little activity where you had to stretch out this candy to get the gummy worm in the middle of it, which it was like putting, I think they said like, it's like the Save Fred thing. Either way, excuse me. So what you did is you took like paper clips and you pulled across with the circular candy. I can't remember what it's called. Either way, and you're trying to get Fred in between, because what the circular candy is a life raft. So that was interesting to watch. And then they made gingerbread houses, and they decorated it, and they had to give a story, which had to take, go with leadership and all. Very good stories. First one, though, oh my gosh, because there was 3 rotations. I sat with 3 different groups of kids. Oh my gosh, the first one was so funny. So, story, Okay. Imagine a world where there was an orphanage where sumo wrestlers were taking care of orphans. I don't know where that story came from, but it was hilarious to sit there. And then the second group, theirs was like theirs was like an abandoned, like, okay, it was like an abandoned schoolhouse that it was really cool. But then the third one, and this is Aiden. Aiden was back. I said it was his group, and I can't fully remember what he was saying, but it was so funny. The whole thing was just hilarious, and so it was a lot of fun sitting there. Of course, the skit, I already told you about it. I was just chasing people out. That's all I did. So yeah, that workshop, a lot of fun. So then we had another skit, which was a closing skit, and it was pretty good. What we did with that is basically Jalen, who was the main character, he would walk, and basically the main characters from each skit, other than Jalen, would give little things to him and tell him, like, Jalen, because of such and such, you made me you deserve whatever. So like our workshop, the leadership in public speaking, the Queen of Hearts gave her glasses, which were heart glasses, to Jalen. So that, stuff like that was part of the skit. And so then we had the banquet, and I got to tell you, because I got really close with the senior class and all the ambassadors, and our president, Gavin Yoakum, his speech was so good. And I mean, I will say this because this is going beyond the fact that I'm a senior and he's a senior as well. But I'll say this. I think it was the best senior presidential farewell speech I have seen with the ambassadors. I hadn't seen anything as good as what he did. And so, if you're watching, Gavin, it was incredible. And after he got done, and after the banquet was over, I remember I went up to him, and he was the first ambassador to talk to me when I first got ambassador, and we went to our first meeting. So I went up to him and told him that, and gave him a big hug, because, we're really good friends. And it was just such in that moment, it just, it was just the right thing. And so it was an incredible speech he gave. And then we had the dance, and oh man, that was fun. Anybody who went to Midwinter who is watching this, the dance was awesome. It was a lot of fun. So dance went on for a few hours, had a lot of fun, and then came today, which was mostly graduation stuff. And so we had the Midwinter slideshow and then senior slideshow. And I mean, that part, I thought, okay, I'm fine. I didn't cry for myself, graduating or anything. Okay, I did fine. But I want to start and talk about what I then received, which is a high honor. And none of this comes lightly when I say that when I became ambassador, I remember that I wanted to help the advisors as much as I could and be there, and just as much as I could go up to them and be like, hey, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? And Jeremy Sparrows was the same way. And me and him became really good friends. And so when he passed, it was hard. And so the advisors had promised they were going to do something in honor of Jeremy. But I didn't know what it was going to be. So, folks, what they did is they set up an award for ambassadors, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be seniors only. So those who are leaving, who left a good impact. And it's called the Jeremy Sparrows Legacy Award. And what it is in recognition of service. And when I say that it is an honor to be the first recipient of this, it truly is. So, right here, this is what I received. You can see that. Me and Jeremy had become really good friends, and the reason why I hadn't mentioned anything about him prior to tonight is because I really couldn't say anything. But now it's really an honor to have been such good friends with Jeremy and to be the first one to receive an award in his name. My name is forever now going to be linked with Jeremy Sparrows. And forever, both of us will be linked together through 4-H, Alabama 4-H. And so for anyone who went to Midwinter and anyone who served with me as a state ambassador, I just want to say this, that being a state ambassador and being there, this was one of the best decisions I ever made, is to apply. Because there's been a bunch of things in my life that's been such meaningful experiences and meaningful things I've done in my life. The most meaningful thing I've ever done was giving my life to Christ. But being an ambassador, that's probably because being a Christian and becoming a Christian, that's like number one and way up at number one. But being an ambassador for 4-H, representing my state and my county, it's been a real honor. And it's one of the best things. I would say it would be in the top 5 of things I've ever done. And so to those who may be watching, who have a chance to apply next year, I recommend it because it is such a great experience. You grow so much. And I want to end by just, for those, I don't know, for those who did serve with me, I just want to tell some thank yous because I think that's very important right here. Because I'm graduating out of high school. I won't be able to be ambassador anymore. And so I just want to say a big thank you to the advisors for just giving me this opportunity. Because they didn't have to choose me. But they chose me because of what I have accomplished through 4-H before that. And now I've accomplished even more of being an ambassador. And I'm just honored to have been chosen to be an ambassador. And I want to thank all the ambassadors who served with me. Because it's just one of those things where the groups that I was a part of, especially like this year. Last year I thought we were close. But this year, there was a closeness that I don't think will ever be topped with an ambassador group. And to be honest with you, all these ambassadors I served with, it really has been an honor. And so for any of you ambassadors that may be watching this, for the advisors who may be watching this, such a huge thank you for everything you've done for me and my family and what will come in the future. And then also, it goes without mentioning that I probably should. I need to mention something else. I need to mention county staffs that I've been able to work with the Lawrence County office with Marcia Terry and Melinda Smith and Donna Shanklin, and even like Juanita Baggett way back when I first began my 4-H journey. I mean, just going to those meetings in Lawrence County before we moved, just, it built me into what I am today to get to that point where I went to Midwinter and then applied for ambassador. So thank you very much. And then, of course, I want to thank the staff currently at Morgan County for supporting me, even though I'm a senior, not only be there 1 year, but they've given me so much love and really have worked with me. And so I just want to thank them as well, because moving counties, especially through 4-H, when you've been at one county for so long, it's a difficult process because you got to get acclimated into everything. And, it's been a great, I feel so welcomed in the Morgan County 4-H. It's incredible. So thank you to them. But I think most importantly, because of who I've become today, I think it really boils down to my family and my parents and my 2 brothers. Because without my 2 brothers and my parents, I don't think I'd be the person I am today. And without Christ, I don't think I'd be the person I am today. So I just wanted to say that my parents have raised me to be a kind, genuine person who, when you have a job, you've got to do it. And that's the way I took this as ambassador. It's a job, and I'm going to do it. So for that, I just want to thank my parents and my brothers who were there, to lighten the mood when things were going rough, and just to kind of give me a little joke and just kind of lighten the mood, let things kind of ease my way through, and just how close I have become with my brothers. Just want to thank them so much. So that is Midwinter 2024. What an experience. And if you're watching this and you didn't go to Midwinter and you're hearing any of this, the takeaway here is that if you are able to go next year, you need to go. Because next year is going to be great. I already know it, because the ones who are returning as ambassadors, I know they'll do a good job. I know it. Because they did a good job this year. And there's such potential to be incredible next year. So, I want to thank you for watching this, and it's been incredible being a part of 4-H, and I'm not done yet with 4-H, but one part of it is over. So, thank you for watching this. We will talk to you again later. Goodbye, everybody.